Hey, buddy, hit that subscribe. Just a sec for you, but it means the world to me. I trusted my daughter-in-law. Yeah, trusted her like family. After my wife passed, I opened my home and my heart, thinking I was doing the right thing. Turns out, I was playing checkers while someone else was running a full-on hustle right under my roof. And the wild part? I didn't find out the way most people do. I watched it happen live on my phone. That morning, the Arizona sun was already cooking the parking lot outside the medical center. I sat in my car, engine off, phone in my hand, pretending I was still inside getting checked out. I told my son and his wife I had a long appointment. True enough, but it ended early. Instead of heading home, I opened a security app and tapped into the camera feed I'd installed just 3 days earlier. Call it a gut feeling. Call it instinct. Either way, something told me to watch. I'm Harold Mercer, 65 years old, retired federal investigator, 30-plus years chasing financial criminals who thought they were slick. Offshore accounts, fake companies, money trails so tangled most people would quit halfway through. I never did. Patterns don't lie, and neither do numbers. After my wife Eleanor died from pancreatic cancer. Fast, brutal, no mercy. The house got real quiet. Too quiet. So when my son Derek suggested he and his wife move in to help, I agreed. I thought family would fill the empty space. Instead, it filled it with something else. Derek travels a lot for work, pharmaceutical sales, always chasing commissions. Vanessa? She doesn't have a job. Says she's building some online business, always on her laptop, always almost there, but somehow always broke. For over a year, they lived in my guest wing like it was a free Airbnb. I didn't complain. Loneliness messes with your judgment. You start excusing things you shouldn't. Then stuff started going missing. Little things at first. Eleanor's old reading glasses. A sweater from the hall closet. A silver photo frame from our Venice trip. I told myself I misplaced them. Getting older, right? But deep down, something felt off. The real punch to the gut came when I opened my wife's jewelry box one afternoon and found her engagement ring gone. That wasn't just jewelry. That ring was history. Family history. And it vanished. That's when the switch flipped. I didn't accuse anyone. That's rookie behavior. Instead, I did what I've always done. I investigated. Drove out of town. Paid cash. Bought tiny cameras no bigger than a golf ball. Installed them while the house was empty. Bedroom, office, hallway. Then I waited. Patience is a weapon if you know how to use it. 3 days later, there she was. At 10:23 a.m., Vanessa walked straight into my bedroom like she owned the place. No hesitation, no fear. She opened Eleanor's jewelry box and went through it like she was shopping her own collection. She held up a sapphire necklace, one that had been in my family for generations, admired it, then dropped it into her purse like it was nothing. Then she grabbed the pearl earrings my wife wore on our wedding day. Gone. Next, she checked my dresser, slid out an envelope under my socks, and took half the cash. Clean, careful, practiced. I didn't yell. I didn't panic. I didn't blink. I just watched. Because right then, I realized this was a mistake. This was a system. And systems always leave trails. What I didn't know yet, what I couldn't have imagined, was that this betrayal went way deeper than my daughter-in-law, and the next discovery was about to shatter whatever was left of my family. I thought catching her on camera was the worst part. I was dead wrong, because when I followed the money, it led straight to my own son. I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was angry. Anger's loud and messy, but because my brain wouldn't shut up. Once you see a pattern, you can't unsee it. And what Vanessa pulled off in my bedroom wasn't some one-time slip. That was a routine. Clean, confident, almost casual. Like she'd done it a dozen times before and never got caught. Until now. The next morning, I played my role. Ate breakfast like nothing was wrong. Drank my coffee. Asked Derek about his next trip. Vanessa smiled, nodded, acted sweet as pie. That woman could win an Oscar for the way she sold normal. But while they went about their day, I went to work. Quietly, carefully, and legally. I started with an inventory. Every piece of Eleanor's jewelry had been documented years ago for insurance. I pulled the old paperwork and laid it out on my desk. What I found made my jaw tighten. The engagement ring, gone. A diamond tennis bracelet, gone. Multiple pairs of earrings, gone. The sapphire necklace and pearls I'd literally watched Vanessa steal. Altogether, over 60 grand missing. That wasn't petty theft. That was a full-blown operation. Then I moved to my office, drawer by drawer, folder by folder. I checked the locked section where I kept old bearer bonds my father had passed down to me. There were supposed to be 6. I found 2. The rest vanished. That was another 20,000. Just like that. I checked my emergency cash stashes next. Short, every single one of them. Not cleaned out, just skimmed. Smart move if you don't want to raise alarms. Classic slow bleed. I photographed everything. Time-stamped it. Labeled it. Old habits die hard. Next came the part one wasn't looking forward to. The financial trail. Bank statements. Credit cards. Online shopping accounts. Vanessa's spending was wild. Designer bags, high-end skincare, jewelry Derek's salary alone couldn't touch. But here's where my stomach dropped. Derek's account showed regular cash deposits. Small amounts. Random days. No explanation. That's when it hit me. My son wasn't clueless. He wasn't innocent. He was in on it. I leaned back in my chair and just sat there for a long minute. 31 years chasing criminals. And the biggest betrayal I'd ever seen was sitting at my own dinner table every night. Derek, the kid I taught how to ride a bike, the man I helped through college, was taking money his wife stole from his dead mother's belongings. That kind of realization doesn't explode. It sinks in slow like poison. That night, I heard footsteps around 2 a.m. Vanessa, heading to the kitchen for water. She passed my office door without a clue I was sitting inside, lights off, watching the hallway through the crack. I could have stepped out. Could have ended it right there. But confrontation wasn't enough. I didn't want yelling. I wanted consequences. By sunrise, I had clarity and a plan. I reached out to an old contact and got the name of a civil attorney in Phoenix who had a reputation for being sharp, ruthless, and by the book. Margaret Chun. We met in her downtown office. All glass and steel, real power player vibes. I laid everything out, video footage, missing items, bank records, timelines. She didn't interrupt, just reviewed, nodded, and took notes. When she finally looked up, she said, "This isn't just theft. This is betrayal with documentation." She explained the options: criminal charges, civil action, eviction, estate restructuring. Not just hitting them once, but hitting them everywhere it would hurt: money, credit, reputation, future. The law had tools sharper than handcuffs if you knew how to use them. Then she asked the hard question: "Are you ready to lose your son over this?" I didn't answer right away. I thought about the cash deposits, the lies, the pearls around Vanessa's neck at dinner. Derek had already made his choice. I was just responding to it. "Let's proceed," I said. As I drove home that evening, the house looked the same from the outside. Warm lights, quiet street. But inside, everything had changed. Derek and Vanessa were still laughing, still planning, still thinking they were untouchable. They had no idea the clock had started ticking. They thought stealing from an old man was easy money. What they didn't know, I was about to take away everything they thought they'd inherit. And then some. Once the decision was made, I moved fast, but not loud. The loud part comes later. Quiet is where real damage gets done. Margaret didn't waste time either. Within days, she had drafts ready, a new will, updated trust documents, and a clean legal roadmap that boxed Derek and Vanessa in from every angle. Arizona law doesn't play when it comes to estates. Your money, your rules. Period. I read every page, every clause, every loophole that didn't exist anymore. My house, my investments, my savings, all of it was rerouted. Instead of going to family that treated my grief like a payday, the bulk of my estate was set to fund a scholarship in Eleanor's name. First-generation college students. Kids who actually needed help, not handouts. Derek and Vanessa, they were each left $1. Not an accident, not a typo, a message. We signed everything at a bank miles away from my neighborhood. Neutral witnesses. Independent notary. Medical competence confirmed. No cracks. No room for them to claim I wasn't in my right mind. Margaret called it bulletproof. I called it closure. Next came the eviction paperwork. Margaret advised patience. Let them find out about the will first, she said. Let that punch land. Then we follow up with eviction and the civil suit at the same time. That's how you rattle people. She wasn't wrong. Pressure works best when it comes from all directions. Back at home, I played my role like a pro. Ate dinner with them. Listened to Vanessa talk about redecorating the guest wing like she owned the place. Derek nodded along, scrolling on his phone, already spending money he thought was coming his way someday. I smiled and agreed. Let them dream. The higher they climbed in their heads, the harder the fall was going to be. Margaret handled the reveal with surgical precision. She staged a meeting at a Scottsdale cafe Vanessa loved to haunt with her laptop. A folder sat on the table, clearly labeled, partially open. Inside, a copy of my updated will. Margaret stepped away just long enough. Vanessa took the bait, snapped photos of every page. Hands shaking, eyes darting. Guilt has a tell, and that was it. That night, the storm hit. Derek burst into my office, phone clenched in his hand, face red like he'd just run a mile. What the hell is this? He yelled. $1? You're cutting us out. I took my time setting down my book. Calm always freaks guilty people out. Interesting question, I said. How'd you get a copy of a private legal document? He froze, then tried to pivot. That doesn't matter. You can't do this. Oh, I absolutely can. I opened a drawer and pulled out a USB drive, set it on the desk between us. That's 4 weeks of video footage. I said, your wife's stealing from me. Time-stamped. Clear. And I've got bank records, too. Those little cash deposits she's been making into your account, you weren't exactly subtle. The color drained from his face. Vanessa appeared in the doorway, already crying, already playing victim. She begged, promised to return everything. Swore it was a misunderstanding. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. I handed them each an envelope. Eviction notices. 30 days. The room went dead quiet. You stole from me, I said. You stole from your mother's memory. This is what consequences look like. Derek tried to speak. Vanessa collapsed against the doorframe. I sat back down and picked up my book like the conversation was over, because they thought the will was the worst of it. They had no clue the civil lawsuit and the criminal charges were already locked and loaded. After that night, the house felt different. Tense, yeah, but also quiet. Derek and Vanessa were like cats in a room full of rocking chairs, edgy, scared, but pretending they weren't. I didn't rush anything. Patience is a weapon, and I had plenty. Every morning, I'd sit with my coffee, glance at the security feeds, and watch their little acts of desperation, half-hearted attempts to hide purchases, whispered phone calls, furtive glances at the cameras I never mentioned. Margaret advised me to document everything. Every misstep, every lie, every penny they moved that didn't belong to them. I set up a new system. Hidden cameras, receipts, digital snapshots of credit card activity. Derek started thinking I was losing it, jokingly muttering, Dad, you're turning into Big Brother. I smiled, letting him think it was paranoia. Let them underestimate you. That's how you win. Then came the first real test. Vanessa, thinking the coast was clear, tried to sell a few of Eleanor's pieces online. High-end stuff. The sapphire necklace she'd taken. The pearls. I caught it all. Emails, screenshots. The works. Margaret confirmed it. Felony theft, trafficking stolen goods, plus fraud. The kind of charges that make you rethink every life choice. Derek didn't even know how to respond when we laid it all out. They were still clinging to the hope that I'd forgive them, that I'd take back the will, the eviction, the lawsuit, that I'd be family again. Cute, right? Wrong. I wasn't trying to punish them out of spite. I was teaching them something they'd never forget. Betrayal has consequences. Real ones. Harsh, unshakable, and permanent. I started prepping the civil case. Detailed spreadsheets, timelines, photographic proof. Everything mapped out so perfectly. Even the sharpest lawyer they hired wouldn't find a crack. Every stolen item, every cash skim, every transaction, it was all linked. When court day came, they'd walk in thinking it was a slap on the wrist. They'd leave knowing what accountability actually looked like. The night before the filing, I walked through the house. Empty rooms, quiet halls, memories everywhere. Eleanor's laughter, our family dinners, the simple sound of her humming in the kitchen. It hit me. This wasn't just about money or jewelry. It was about protecting her legacy, protecting the life we built. And in that silence, I promised myself one thing. They wouldn't walk away unscathed. Next morning, Derek tried to act normal. Vanessa kept texting me, begging, whining, promising they'd pay back everything. I didn't respond. Silence is louder than any argument. By noon, Margaret filed a civil suit, citing theft, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. The papers would hit their mailbox by courier tomorrow. And then came the icing on the cake, the criminal angle. Margaret reached out to an old friend at the local prosecutor's office. With my evidence, Vanessa's online sales, and Derek's complicity, felony charges were already queued. They thought they were untouchable. They were about to learn the hard way that I wasn't just an old man. They were tangling with a pro. They thought being clever would save them. But when a knock came at the door, it wasn't the eviction notice that would break them. It was the sound of the law. The next morning, the sound of the knock was louder than any alarm clock. Sharp, official, impossible to ignore. Vanessa froze mid-step, coffee mug in hand. Derek's face went pale, like he'd seen a ghost, except this ghost carried a badge and a folder full of their own crimes. 2 officers from the local sheriff's department stood at the door, calm, professional, but with that unmistakable authority that makes even grown men shrink. I opened the door, stepped aside, and let them in. Derek tried to speak, to charm, to explain. Classic move. Didn't work. Vanessa's sweet talk shtick? Gone. Poof. All of a sudden, the woman who had walked into my bedroom like she owned the place looked like a scared little kid caught in a rainstorm. The deputies laid out the charges. Felony theft, trafficking stolen property, and conspiracy. Every stolen item had been documented. Every cash deposit traced. Every fraudulent online sale accounted for. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck. They were trapped in the evidence I'd meticulously gathered. Derek stammered. Dad, you did all this? I didn't flinch. Didn't apologize. Didn't even speak. Silence said enough. Actions matter more than words. He realized, probably for the first time, that I wasn't some naive old man. I was someone who'd spent decades untangling people just like them. Vanessa's sobbing turned into pleading. Please, we didn't mean... I cut her off in my head. Didn't need to. The law was speaking louder than I ever could. Margaret had already prepared everything for the civil case, the criminal follow-up, and the court proceedings. Every loophole they thought they could exploit was sealed tight. No charm, no lies, no excuses would get them out of this. After the deputies left with the paperwork and warnings, Derek slumped into a chair. His ego, his entitlement, his illusions, all shattered in a single morning. Vanessa clung to him, whispering apologies, promises, and threats to change. But promises are meaningless when the system is already in motion. By mid-afternoon, the neighborhood had started buzzing. Rumors spread like wildfire. Did you hear what Harold Mercer did? I can't believe Vanessa tried to. I stayed inside, calm as ever. Public opinion didn't matter. Justice wasn't about gossip. It was about setting things right, protecting what was mine and what belonged to Eleanor's memory. That evening, I reviewed the footage one last time. Vanessa rifling through drawers, Derek glancing nervously at the cameras, the audacity, the lies, and I realized something. The betrayal had stung, yeah, but the real satisfaction was revenge. It was control, knowing that every action had consequences, that no amount of deceit, charm, or entitlement could outrun accountability. And in that quiet, I knew the final act was coming. The courtroom showdown that would either crush them completely or teach them a lesson they'd never forget. They thought the cops were the worst part. They had no clue that the civil suit, the criminal trial, and the financial ruin waiting for them would hit like a storm they couldn't survive. Court day arrived like a freight train. Derek and Vanessa walked in wearing their best, were innocent faces, but their eyes betrayed the panic underneath. They had rehearsed, practiced their sob stories, tried to charm friends and family. But nothing could hide the avalanche of evidence stacked against them. Margaret was a force of nature, dressed in sharp black. She didn't just argue, she commanded the room. Each piece of evidence, each video clip, every bank transaction was presented with surgical precision. The judge didn't need convincing. He saw what anyone with eyes could see: theft, fraud, conspiracy, betrayal, trust. And Derek and Vanessa were cornered. No exits, no excuses, no charm left to sell. Vanessa tried to squirm. It wasn't all me. Derek, he knew. Derek's face went red. He stammered, tried to shift blame, tried to mumble something about pressure and circumstances. Margaret shut him down faster than a gavel. Conspiracy doesn't require coercion, she said. Both of you acted knowingly, intentionally, and repeatedly. There is no mitigating factor here, only responsibility. I sat back in the courtroom, calm as ever, feeling a strange mix of vindication and sadness. Family betrayal is a different kind of pain, one that lingers, even when justice is served. But I had done what needed doing. I protected Eleanor's memory. I protected my legacy. I protected myself. By the afternoon, the rulings hit. Civil damages, full restitution of stolen items, plus punitive damages, criminal charges, felony theft and fraud, jail time for Vanessa, probation and financial penalties for Derek. Their futures, carefully constructed with lies and deceit, crumbled in front of them. The shock was visible, raw, and total. Outside the courtroom, paparazzi-style whispers followed them down the steps. Derek's friends called. Family members questioned. Rumors spread. It was public humiliation on top of legal consequences. Vanessa tried to hold her head high, but her shoulders sagged. Derek looked like he'd aged 10 years in a day. And through it all, I felt nothing but clarity. Back home, I locked the doors, walked through the empty halls, and for the first time in years, felt peace. Eleanor's photos smiled from the walls. Her laugh echoed in memory, and the house finally felt like home again. The cameras were still there, tucked away, a silent reminder. Vigilance isn't paranoia, it's survival. Sometimes revenge isn't about rage. It's about precision, planning, patience, and above all, consequences. Derek and Vanessa had learned that the hard way. And me? I'd learned that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who honor the past, respect the truth, and never forget the lessons life teaches the hard way. Betrayal cuts deep, but justice, calculated and relentless, cuts deeper. And when you protect what truly matters, no thief, no liar, no betrayal can ever win.